Well, welcome along to the Timeform Sporting Life Weekend Preview. David Ord joined in the studio by top tipsters Matt Brocklebank and Ben Linfoot. We're going to start looking ahead to Kempton and the Coral Trophy, the big betting race of the day. And over the years, Scoop, it's been a good heat.
It certainly has, Dave. Yeah, some really good names from the past have won this race, haven't they? The likes of Nakarat, a big grey horse you remember for Tom George, bowling along in front and winning this race. And it's a really good race in its own right, isn't it? Away from the Cheltenham Festival, good prize money, worth more than some Cheltenham Festival handicaps. And because of that, you've got very shrewd trainers, the likes of Dan Skelton, targeting this race.
Anthony Honeyball targeting it as well, Matt. He's got 3 darts he's throwing at the board. Let's get the Timeform ratings up on screen because he's responsible for the top rated horse. Blackjack Magic, £2 clear there, a forward plan. Spoiler alert, another Honeyball runner. But I believe you're like a third Honeyball runner.
Yeah, they've all got a good chance, I think, Dave, to be honest, in this. And you're right, Honeyball is a great place for his horses, and this looks a good fit for all of them. Blackjack Magic obviously won the Badger Beers, snared a nice prize already this season. Not so good last time, but excuses for that day. Forward plan went close at Doncaster, and I thought Sam Brown, just 2 weeks ago now, ran fairly well in the face of a stiff challenge in the Denman Chase, Grade 2 Denman Chase. That was obviously featuring Britain's big hope for the Cheltenham Gold Cup in Shishkin, and obviously Protectorate, who's been running consistently well this season in good company. So I think he ran fairly well. He was staying on at the finish. He got a bit outpaced, as you'd imagine, against those classier rivals. But Sam Brown comes here with a squeak, I think, having won the Veterans Final previously at Warwick.
Talking of veterans, I'll turn to you now, Scoop. We'll get the pace map. We'll get the pace map up for this. You expect Handicap Chase around Kempton to be run at a good clip. Horses tend to like to go forward here, but only an even pace forecast.
Yeah, well, obviously just the 12 runners and only a couple that normally go forward. You would think Unanswered Prayers for Chris Gordon would be up there. Il Redito, who is up there on the Timeform pace map, I'm not as convinced as that predicted pace map that he'll be ridden as forward, because he's normally ridden forward over 2.5. This is a rare go, a first go, I think, at 3 miles for Il Redito. So I think they might not be so forceful with him, but most of the winners in the last 10-15 years of this race have come from that midfield slot just off the leaders, and there's a big chunk of horses in there I think will be ridden in that way to come with a late run off the home turn, and it should be a cracking contest the way that it's going to be set up.
Selection time. I like forward plan. I thought it was very unlucky not to win that Great Yorkshire Chase last time. And I think a £4 higher perch won't stop him from going very close. Matt, is it Sam Brown?
It is. I'm going to double down on Sam Brown because I think he is top weight in this, and it's going to be a bit of a challenge. But he's got his conditions. He likes soft ground, and interestingly, they were lining him up for the Veterans Final when it was at Sandown. He hasn't got that much form on right-handed tracks. He ended up winning the race at Warwick, which is obviously going the other way around. But he's got a couple of good, interesting bits of right-handed form, including at last year's Punchestown Festival. He was in a staying handicap chase off a high weight that day, and he was going really well out in front. I'd quite like to see a switch back to those more prominent tactics for Sam Brown this weekend, and he was out in the lead 2 out, and he fell, unfortunately. I think it did set him back, but this is a horse that spent a fair amount of time in the wilderness after going up a lot in the weights for winning at the Grand National meeting at Cheltenham, Aintree a couple of years ago, beg your pardon. But he's found himself on a good mark again this season, so he's won the Veterans Final, and I think he might be able to go well here. I think he's overpriced anyway.
Scoop, your selection.
I like Killer Kane for Joe Tizard. Colin Tizard won this race a few times with Theatre Guide and Mr. Malarkey, and I think Killer Kane has got a good chance in this. He's won a couple of times around Kempton, won around Sandown as well, so he's very much at home over 3 miles on right-handed tracks. And I liked his comeback run last time after wind surgery, which is key. I think it might just eke a little bit more improvement out of this horse. I thought he jumped the best he's ever jumped when he was 3rd at Kempton last time, and if he can come forward from that, I think he's got a good chance. He was 5th in this race last year, but that was under a £5 penalty, so he's actually £4 lower than when he was 5th in this race last year, and I think he's got a good chance.
Some other good racing, Matt, at Kempton. We've got the Dovecote, the David Ord, also known as the Adonis, and the Pendle. Anything else catching your eye?
Yeah, well, the Adonis is a race that has occasionally thrown up the odd genuine champion juvenile over the years, hasn't it? And we might get some Triumph Hurdle clues in that. I'm actually going to focus on a former Triumph Hurdle winner, Pentland Hills. He won the Triumph in 2019 for Nicky Henderson. Runs in the opening handicap hurdle over 2 miles 5 furlongs, the 1:15, and he slipped to a very good mark. If you go back to certainly go back to his juvenile days, he runs over 142 this weekend, so he went up a couple of pounds for just being beaten at Doncaster when we last saw him. He was due to run, it was at Chepstow, wasn't it, when the ground was really quite bad at heavy ground. I know it's going to be testing enough this weekend, but Kempton does tend to dry out. We've got a decent forecast on Saturday, so I think he'll be all right and get away with it. And he's got a good £5 claimer in the saddle as well in Freddie Gordon. I think he's had a winner before for Nicky Henderson as well, 1 from 9 for the yard. So yeah, I'm going for Pentland Hills, Dave. Hopefully we can get about 8-1 in the opening race.
8-1 Pentland Hills. I think it's the Dovecote for you, Scoop.
It is, Dave. Yeah, I like the look of Secret Squirrel at around 6-1, which I think is a decent wager on Saturday. I don't think that this horse has got much, if anything, at all to find with the likes of Lump Sum and Fiercely Proud on a line through Jericho de Repenay. And I really like this horse's hurdling debut at this track at Kempton, where he travelled really strongly, jumped well, back at Kempton against the two aforementioned horses. I think he's got a good chance, and Hughie Morrison, he's got a really good record at Kempton with his jumps horses. He just looked to me to be a little bit underestimated by the market, so I'm going to go with him.
Interesting that, isn't it? Because Supreme Hope Jericho de Repenay has been crabbed a little bit for that piece of form, but we could get a boost for him.
It all comes together here, doesn't it? A couple of his runs, and it'd be interesting to see which one comes out on top.
Henderson still talking a good game around him for the Sky Bet Supreme as well, so that'd be interesting. Ben, I'll let you go first with the Eider Chase. We usually see this going down to an experienced gunslinger, but there's 1 or 2 potential improvers, horses in good form heading this year. An interesting renewal.
It is, yeah. I think I'm going to go with one of those experienced gunslingers, because I do like the look of Major Dundee here for Alan King, who wasn't in the best of nick earlier in the season, you'd have to say, but it looks like things are turning round for him, and I'm hoping that's an angle that Major Dundee can exploit, because he has come down in the weights for running what have been below par performances earlier this season, but his first 2 were over around 3 miles, and we know this horse is a dour stayer, won the Midlands National over 4 mile 2 furlongs from a mark of 129. Now he's off 132 on Saturday, so he's only £3 higher than Utoxeter, and back over a marathon trip in the Eider Chase. I think we're finally going to see the best of him, because even last time over 3 mile 5 at Warwick in the Classic Chase, he just got taken off his feet too early. They went hell for leather to the first fence and over the first few fences, and I just don't think he got in any sort of rhythm whatsoever. But back at this trip over a much easier tempo, I think we might see the best of him. So Major Dundee for me.
Heavy ground Eider Chase, and there's a value bet in there, Matt.
There is, yeah. I'm going for one slightly less exposed over fences. Prance de Fichot, excuse the pronunciation. We'll go for bottom weight. We'll call him the bottom weight. He's actually £4 wrong in the handicap, but he's quite closely matched with one of the market leaders in this, isn't he? Fenland Tiger, who's about 6-1. Prance de Fichot's about 16-1, and there was only half a length between them last time. And I thought the Willens horse, he's not been with Willens for that long. He's only had a couple of 3 starts for the yard so far. And I thought with a better jump at the last, he might well have beaten that horse. So he goes into it, Fenland Tiger, as one of the in-form horses on a hat-trick and going really well. But this horse is sneaking into it under a low weight. I know he's got to run from out of the handicap, but it's one of those races, as you say, in the conditions, it becomes quite specialist stuff, doesn't it? I think weights and measures have to be taken a little bit with a pinch of salt. If you handle heavy ground, bad ground, and you stay 4 miles, I think you're in with a chance. And this horse should be ridden fairly prominently. I think he might get a good spin out in front under Danny McMenamin doing his bottom weight.
16-1 chance in the Eider to end the show then. We'd like your selections too. Please leave them at the bottom and comment below the video. Let us know what you're fancy for this weekend's action. The guys will be back next week looking ahead to it's one of the quieter Saturdays on the racing calendar. There's a rather big event just around the corner. So we'll be back next weekend previewing the action from Newbury. And before then, best of luck with your own weekend wagers.